happy to give you more information. And finally, I'd also encourage you to go to the ASSP Long Beach chapter website, where you can see everything that we have coming up, all of the events, the opportunities, all the news, resources, job postings, everything that's available to you through ASSP. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to speak to everyone. And I appreciate the opportunity to support and to continue partnering with Cal State University Dominguez Hills very much. Any questions? I was muted. Which part? Okay. So my introduction was apparently muted. So I'm going to introduce myself again. So again, my name is Chris Rainwater. I'm the president of the Long Beach chapter for ASSP. I'm also the Deputy Chief of Safety for the Army Corps of Engineers in the Los Angeles district. This is my 36th year as a safety professional. I know everyone looking at me right now on camera is thinking there's no way he's old enough to have done this for 36 years. I get it. I have a mirror, but this is my 36th year. And I love this field. I'm obviously passionate about it. That's why I've done it for so long. And so I just want to again encourage all of you to learn more about ASSP. If you're not currently members, visit the ASSP.org site to join. Go to the Long Beach ASSP site for more information, and we'll be happy to tell you anything else that you need to know about it or like to know about it. And we look forward to seeing you join. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. So as we follow up, I guess the first section of this was muted, so I'm perfectly okay with it being muted because I already had my first brownie bite. So I'm going to work on my second brownie bite now. So with that being said, I want to kind of talk about what our agenda for today is going to be, and understand that as I look in the camera here, I'm also going to look into the room for the folks that we have here as well too, so I don't have my back turned to you. So we had our ASSP Long Beach chapter president Chris Rainwater come out. Our next presenter is going to be Luis Ortiz. So Luis Ortiz from our All Safe Management vice president of the ASSP Long Beach chapter as well too. So correct. So Luis, being the founder and CEO of Safe First Management LLC, will be doing a presentation on safety management versus the safety hero. So after him, we will go into a short little break. Then we'll get into systems management with Dick Manad. I've got a special presentation for Dick when I introduce him right off the get-go. You know, we go back, my friend, many, many years. So, and then what I encourage you to do is stay till the end because there is a raffle. So, and with that raffle comes fantastic prizes, correct? I see the OTI Long Beach staff saying yes. Fantastic. So there's a raffle at the end. So we will select numbers. You will win things other than food, I promise you. So without further ado, I want to introduce Luis Ortiz. Luis, I'll walk the mic over to you. Please don't come to me. Or, well, then forget it. You're not getting my mic. I think Luis recently went to the Taylor Swift concert and saw Taylor Swift wearing the headset. So he wanted to replicate as another Swiftie fan. And thank you, Luis.
Trying to be
There it is. Perfect.
Can you all hear me? All right. All right. Good morning. My name is Luis Ortiz, and I'm the founder and CEO of Safety First Management. And we do environmental health and safety. I'm also an instructor here at Cal State University Dominguez Hills. I teach several courses, OSHA 511, 510, 501, 502. I teach, I'm going to be teaching machine guarding. So several courses I teach here. It's an honor and a blessing to teach here. And I'm also the vice president of the ASSP Long Beach chapter. So before I start my presentation on safety management versus safety hero, I wanted to talk about the Safe and Sound campaign. That's something, an emphasis through OSHA. And this year's emphasis in Safe and Sound is around mental health. And on the OSHA website, you can register to be a member of Safe and Sound. So you can register your company. that you are committed to the campaign for the week, and there's still time. So you have until August 13th, so you can still sign up today, and your company could be on the list as on the OSHA website as participating. So for example, currently in California, there are 315 companies that have signed up to participate in the Safe and Sound. So that's California, that's 315. Safety First Management is one of those 315. I'll give you a little spot check here. For example, Illinois has 105 companies. Wisconsin has 69 that have signed up. So when you go onto the OSHA website, you can see by what state, what companies have signed up. And so, as I mentioned, the topic this year is mental health. So it's important that we reduce workplace stress, okay? And reducing workplace stress, it benefits everyone. So it can lead to a more productive workplace if employees are less mentally stressed. It's important that employees feel like they have someone to talk to. So here's some examples of some things that you can do to support mental wellness in the workplace. Let your staff know that you're committed to supporting their mental health and well-being. Raise awareness about workplace stressors and to reduce the stigma around reporting mental health. So you want to encourage employees, if they're not feeling well, if perhaps they're really stressed from a work environment or work situation, encourage them to bring it up so they can have someone to talk to. Be transparent, make sure there's two-way communication. Consider creating a mental health task force or a committee that includes representatives from different departments, and then build a culture of connection. So remember, every company has a culture. So whether you're big or small, you have a culture. So make sure that that's a positive culture and that employees are feeling engaged and empowered. So that's the campaign for Safe and Sound. If you haven't signed up yet, you still have time. If you didn't get to do it ahead of time, next year, I encourage you to plan ahead, reach out to, the organization, the university. We can definitely help you if needed. All right, so going into my presentation. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to cover the difference between safety management and safety hero. And this is a topic that really has to do with the day-to-day being an EHS professional, where in some scenarios, it feels like if we don't do everything as a safety professional, nothing gets done. So typically, and if for the folks that are virtual, if you could start thinking of examples where you feel like if you don't do the work, if you don't follow up, it doesn't get done. Okay, that's what we're calling a safety hero. So we're going to talk about the difference between being a safety hero versus using management systems. And then hopefully we'll give you some techniques that you can go back to your organization and you can implement those management systems. So that's what we're going to cover today. So what's the safety hero? I think at some point in everyone's career, you may have had to be the safety hero. So for me, I've been the safety hero where I work 100 hours a week. Anytime there's a problem, I'm there to address it. Anytime an employee does something unsafe, I'm standing right there to correct it. Essentially, the safety hero is the one that's driving everything. Okay. And in some scenarios, you have to be the safety hero. But the problem is you can't stay like that. Okay. So the safety hero, whenever there's a problem, they show up. Whenever someone isn't doing their job, they show up. The safety hero is willing to, for example, fight with someone for not showing up to a meeting. The safety hero is sometimes the person that's asking, hey, where are we at on these work orders? Where are we at on doing these repairs? Does any of that sound familiar? Anybody feel like a safety hero? Okay, so again, I'm not saying that you can't be the safety hero. What I'm saying is we can't stay that way because it's not sustainable. So, anybody ever feel like that at work? Yes, all the time, right? Work is stressful, work is difficult, and people can make it very, very difficult, right? Part of why I like teaching here at the OSHA Training Institute is it reminds me that the rules are very clear, right? The goal of OSHA is very clear. So what makes it complicated? It's the people, right? It's dealing with the people. It's seeing someone doing something unsafe and having to go tell that person, hey, I just saw you do something unsafe, but because I have to go to a meeting and I'm going to be late, I don't want to stop what I'm doing to address this with you. Okay. The safety hero would say, I'm going to address this right away. I'm going to address it right away. And I'm going to address it right away. So, you know, what about when you've had enough? Okay. So, in my career, I had one job where the safety hero is what I thought I was until I realized I was the only person pushing safety. And what ends up happening is once you've had enough, you've had enough. And if that safety hero leaves, what happens to the company? If it takes 3 months to find somebody, who's doing safety for those 3 months? So the problem with the hero is when the hero stops showing up, what happens? And that's what we want to talk about. We want to avoid that. Anybody want to be the hero still? No? Anybody? Okay. So, all right, let's talk about safety management, which is different. Okay. So, according to ISO, the definition is the standard defines an occupational health and safety management system as the set of interrelated or interacting elements of an organization to establish policies, objectives, and process to achieve occupational health and safety objectives. So we're going into a management system that's going to tell us we need to try to have structure. We need to have policies. We need to have procedures. We need to have methods to be able to get the results we're looking for without having to be the hero. So we want to focus on the process, not the people. Okay, so for example, as a safety professional, we're a facilitator. So if we're working with 10 other managers, we're a facilitator of a system. So if one person leaves, they get replaced with someone else, that person has to just follow the system. Yes, they can make it better, but essentially the system is in place. So the best example I think of is imagine a big old boulder. Okay, the safety professional might be the first person in the front pushing that boulder, but you need everybody else behind you to help you push it so that if one person leaves, the boulder continues to move forward because you have everybody there. So the management system is going to tell you focus on the process, not necessarily the people. Focus on measurable results. So if we're going to do things, we need to measure them because if we don't measure them, how do we know if they're effective? Management systems talks about when you would have very clear objectives, strategic planning, accountability, ownership, and the last piece is maturity. So a lot of organizations, the more immature the organization is with safety, the more, whenever there's an injury, the first thing they say is, where's the safety person? I've been in many situations where I'm in a conference room, there's something that happens wrong, the boss is looking at me, asking me a question, but yet the supervisor is right next to me. You're asking me, why did the person behave like this? Why did the person do this? What about the manager of that person? Why aren't they being asked those questions? I've been in a meeting where they're asking me, how come these things haven't gotten fixed? How come no one's fixed this? The maintenance manager walks right by the room and no one says anything. I'm like, hey, the person in charge of maintenance just walked right by. Let's ask them. Oh, no, they don't have time. Okay. So the safety professional has the time, I guess. So that's part of what we're talking about. Okay. So the safety hero is sometimes what I used to be. I used to go to people's office and stand at the door and say, when are these 10 things going to get fixed? I used to call people. They'd look at my call, hang up, but I'd see them. I'd go up to them. Hey, I just called you. I noticed you just didn't pick up my call. Where are we at with those 10 things? That's the hero. Okay. I didn't go to school to learn how to pester and stalk people. I didn't learn that in school. I learned how to do safety management systems. So it's important that you focus on safety management systems. A safety hero will argue and fight with another department manager about why something is not fixed. A safety hero argues until it gets fixed versus a safety management system, which is very different. So for example, I've been in situations where they're asking me, why hasn't maintenance fixed this issue? And the maintenance person walks right by. They're supposed to be in that meeting. They were invited to the meeting. They didn't show up. Why aren't they there? What is that example? What's missing? If key people are not in a meeting to talk about safety, what is missing? Management commitment, right? There's no commitment. If there's a meeting that we're supposed to review for safety and the department leader doesn't show up and they're not called, they're not forced to come to the meeting, where's the management commitment? So safety management will say, okay, we're going to have a set frequency meeting and everyone is supposed to show up to present. And when they don't show up, there's accountability. The person in charge should be picking up the phone and saying, where are you? Why aren't you here? Okay, that's an example of a management system versus constantly chasing people. So safety management systems is only going to work if you have management commitment. And the reality is, only if you have management commitment do things work. If not, it's you trying to make things happen on your own. So it's important that we become strategic. Okay, so I've got some examples here I'm going to share with you on how we can transition out of safety hero into safety management. So let me give you a couple of examples. So thank you. So management, leadership, and employee participation is key in safety management. You have to plan things. You have to implement. You have to evaluate how things are going. You have to have corrective actions, and you have to have management review. This is huge. Management review is a big deal. Big deal. I ask a lot of my clients, I'll ask them, hey, how often do you review safety performance? How often do you have a meeting that is just for safety? Okay, that's a management system. If you're not forcing management to have a meeting to review safety, then it's not important, right? Whatever is important, we review. If we're not looking at it, it's not that important. So management review is very important. So management system means trust the process. So you put a system in place, you make adjustments as you need, but the idea is management system is you depend on the process, not the person. So again, I'll give you some specific examples. Okay, so how do we get things fixed in the factory or your work site or your construction site? So here are a couple examples. Once a week, you could have a meeting and say all managers and supervisors need to join this weekly meeting. And in that weekly meeting, we're going to review the safety performance from the week before. So for example, if there was a first aid incident or an OSHA recordable last week, every Tuesday, we know we're going to have a meeting. And every Tuesday, we should have the results of the investigation of the injury that happened. And that should be reviewed and presented every week. So what we end up building is every week, we know we're going to have a safety review. And ideally, every week, the supervisor, the manager is presenting root cause analysis. They're presenting what happened. And sometimes it takes time to get them there, but you'll get them there eventually. So for example, this is what I said. You could have a meeting, review the root cause analysis. You could have a monthly meeting where you say every month, we're going to review certain KPIs, key performance indicators. So all of you that are joining virtually or here present, you should have KPIs. So how are you tracking safety? How do you know that your organization did better in safety the month before? And your KPI can't just be injuries because sometimes that's just luck. So KPIs, key performance indicators could be what percentage of the employees were trained? What percentage of incident investigations were completed within 24 to 48 hours? How many employees submitted their good catch observation? So whatever KPI you use, it's up to you, but you got to have something measurable to know how you're doing. All right, so there's this concept, and I've seen it called different things. You could call it a SHARP plan. I've seen it as a PI safety performance improvement plan. The SHARP stands for Safety Health Accident Reduction Plan. Me personally, I use the SHARP plan. And what that does is for the entire year, we'll say, what are the 1 to 4 things we want to work on? One of them could be incident management. Okay, we want to get better at incident management. So we have 4 little substreams. By this date, we want supervisors trained on doing incident reports. By this date, we want managers trained on how to do a root cause analysis. By this date, we want the manager or supervisor to present this. So another work stream could be lockout tagout. So you could say, we want to improve our lockout tagout program. That's the work stream. And under the sub work stream, you could say, by this date, we want to have a policy. By this date, we want to do energy assessment. By this date, we want to do this. So you have to have plans. So there's a plan to make sure that whatever operations you have, there's a plan to keep you in business. Any company that you work for, there's a plan to make sure you get paid unless you are working for free, which if so, come work with me. You sound like a great employee. So, but the point is there's a plan for everything. So if you don't have a plan for safety, then it must not be that important. You got to have a plan, right? So again, if I go to a company and they tell me this is our logistics plan, great. This is your quality plan, great. Where's your safety plan? Okay, so and I'm not talking about an IIPP. Okay, I'm not talking about HASCOM. I'm talking about where is the plan to work on improvements and continuous improvement. Where is that? You got to have one, or you should have one. Because if not, then what you may be doing is just reacting, as opposed to working towards proactive approaches. And it is difficult because I've had feedback, including myself. How could I worry about the future when I'm dealing with the day-to-day? Okay. Sometimes fighting fires and planning ahead, they're 2 different people. Okay. But for us as safety professionals, we kind of have to be a combination of both. We have to be able to react to the situations that are happening, but at the same time, we have to have a plan that we're working towards. So any questions so far from anybody on what we covered? I saw you taking some pictures and notes. That's good. Good. What about some examples? What are you all doing at some of the places you work or your organizations? How are you managing the safety hero versus safety management balance? How's that going? Any feedback, questions? What about for you? How are you balancing that act?
I'm like a consultant, so when I go on the job site, I'll see what their the records are, how they're doing, like their JHAs,
Good.
safety training. Good. Besides any incidents.
So as a consultant, do you find that organizations are more on the safety hero side or the safety management system side? Good. And is that organizations with safety professionals or without?
The ones without.
Good. That's a good point. So the companies without a safety person, typically you're saying are utilizing more management systems. Okay, that's actually a very good point. And I think part of that is if you have a safety person, what are they going to say? It's a safety person's job, right? So I do see this a lot where the organization has a safety person and a lot of the things end up being that's safety. And some organizations that don't have a dedicated safety professional, it ends up being more spread out in the operations. Yes, Kathy.
We have a question. How do you Do you get other parts of management involved when the claim time constraints?
With the what constraint?
When the claim time constraints?
Good. Like, so let's say someone got injured, how do you get management involved? I believe that's the question. So as soon as someone gets hurt, there should be an investigation or incident investigation right away. And ideally, you are going to have the employee involved. If you have a safety professional or a safety consultant, that's good to keep them involved. But really, you need to have the people that are directly leading that department. So for example, the supervisor and the manager, you want them trained on how to do incident reporting. You want them trained on how to do incident investigations. And depending on the maturity of your organization, in some companies, the supervisor does the first report of injury, and my team will help with the root cause analysis until they learn. My more mature clients, it started that way, but now the managers are doing their own investigations, they're writing it up, and that's when you know you're really, really winning, because you want your management team to be doing the investigations. A lot of times, the only department that uses root cause methodology is safety. Root cause 5Y is not even a safety. It wasn't created for safety. It was created through an issue at Toyota. So why is safety the only one using the methodology to figure out why things happen? It should be used across the organization. So as we teach the supervisors and managers how to do root cause analysis for safety, it'll transfer over to other parts of the company. So the question is, how do we get that? Well, you need to train and encourage people. You want to train people to be motivated to do root cause analysis, to teach them. The same methodology you're using here is going to help you with your problems in production. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll tell them, give me a problem that you have that's not related to safety, and I'm going to use the 5 Whys to get you a solution. So perhaps that's a way you can bring the company in, get more buy-in. You help them solve a problem of their own using the same methodology, and that could encourage them and motivate them. Good question. All right. So this is kind of a good segue into the comment that we just had. The comment was made that in some organizations where there's not a safety professional, we see that safety spread out. Okay. My belief is, as safety professionals, we're facilitators. So we're like the quarterback, or maybe better, the coach, right? That's probably better, the coach, right? So we're facilitating. That's what you're supposed to be doing, is facilitating. So sometimes when you have a safety hero, it prevents ownership. As I mentioned, I've been in situations where people are asking me why this wasn't done, but the person that's in charge is sitting right next to me and they're not asking them. So the safety hero sometimes can prevent that, because everyone feels like, well, that's a safety person's job. That's not our job. Sometimes a safety hero, they could prevent maturity. So the first company that I worked for in California, they had 1,500 people in one location, and we had probably 15 recordables a month. So I used to have long wavy hair, and that's gone now. So, and what I found there was, the first year I reduced incidents by like 40%. And I did it all by myself. And then after the first year, I said, okay, I'm done working 100 hours a week, which that ended up not happening. But I said, I'm done here doing that. And I said, it's time for the managers to own it. What do you all think happened to safety? Did it get better or worse? It got worse. Why did it get worse? Why did it get worse when I told the management it's your turn to do your job after 1 year? Why did it get worse and not better?
Probably because they didn't have the same buy-in as the safety profession.
Yep. They didn't have much buy-in or engagement. More importantly, they didn't know what to do. You know why they didn't know what to do? Because I was doing it for them. When an employee was doing something unsafe, I'm like, no, I got this. Let me go talk to them. When someone was doing something wrong, they'd say, hey, Luis, can you go talk to that person? I'm like, sure, I'll take care of it. Biggest guy in the room. I'm the smallest. I'll go take care of it. No big deal. Right? I made a mistake. I did everything. And when I turned it over to the people that it belonged to, they didn't know what to do, and injuries went up, and I was devastated. Obviously, I got it back under control. I learned that lesson 11 years ago. Hence, this is why this is this topic. So the safety hero is not sustainable. Again, you may need to be the safety hero in the beginning, but it's not sustainable. Yes.
So we have two comments and a question. Let's start with the question. In your opinion, should HR be involved with safety issues? If so, to what extent?
Absolutely. HR needs to be involved for several different reasons. One, HR is the department that handles discipline, not safety. So it's not, OSHA doesn't dictate what disciplinary actions employees should receive for any safety incident, unsafe practice. So absolutely HR needs to be involved. HR should be involved in ensuring that the employee received the proper training, that it's documented, because sometimes it's easier. I'll give you another example. We're talking about maturity. I worked at a place where an employee fell down the stairs. He wasn't holding on to the railing. They said, write him up. My question was, are we writing him up because he didn't hold on to the railing, or are we writing him up because he fell down the stairs? They said, no, we're writing him up because he didn't hold on to the railing. I said, okay, let's go take a walk. As we're standing there, 15 people did not hold on to the railing as they went down the stairs. So I said, hey, write up, write up, write up, write up, write up. So the idea is it's easier to write up that employee for falling down the stairs, for not holding onto the rail, but you're not writing up other people. So HR should be involved, because if HR is not involved, the culture may be we write people up because they got hurt, not because they did the unsafe act. So we want people to be written up when they do an unsafe behavior or act and they're not injured. So that's why HR should be involved. HR should be supporting, but in my opinion, safety has to be operation centric. It has to come from the operations. Great question. Is there a follow-up question to that, or another comment or question?
So we have just two comments. One from Anonymous. After having an incident, I decided to train everyone in first aid and CPR and ED. We started the safety buddy culture.
Great.
So that was one. And then
That's great.
We have from Zane. They claim time constraints. They have no time for safety and leave all to safety managers to handle it instead of getting involved. They have OSHA 30, but they are not engaged because they don't prioritize safety and think other things are important, since near miss and close calls don't really happen. The company does road work like slurry seal and crack fill. They have traffic control crews who are updated.
So you could have a workplace that has 0 injuries and still have a poor safety culture. So in regard to that comment, without management commitment, it's very difficult to do what we're talking about. You have to have management commitment. How do you get management commitment? There's different ways to do that. I used to tell people it's the right thing to do, but then I realized not everybody thinks the same way. Okay, so I've had people tell me, why would we do that? OSHA's not even going to show up. Okay, that's actually a legitimate comment. There's not enough resources in OSHA for all these businesses out there. So we have to take a different approach, like it's the right business decision to protect the employees to then avoid an injury that is then going to create a workers' comp claim, and then they litigate times 10. Now you have almost $1 million in workers' comp costs. So you have to take different approaches depending on the organization. Some organizations, they care about the people side of things. So that's the approach you have to take. If money is the approach that they're focused on, then take the approach of, if you don't have time now, what do you think time's going to look like when someone gets seriously injured or killed? Because then that's going to take up a lot of time.
Well, I think also a good comeback to that is, are they willing to take a risk, right? Are you willing to take a risk that an employee is not going to pick up the phone and file a complaint?
Exactly. And you have a poor safety culture, right? If that's the culture that people don't feel comfortable, they don't feel safe, they're calling OSHA, they're getting, again, just because people are not getting hurt doesn't mean that the culture is positive, right? Those are two different things. So great question. Are there any other questions in the chat? All right, great. So what does safety management do? It helps others own their safety. So when you use a management system, it helps other people say, well, we agreed in the beginning of the year that you were going to show up to every meeting and give an update. Where are you? We agreed that you were going to do X amount of observations per week. Where are they? That's part of the management commitment and accountability. Everyone matures and can do more. And then it creates a long-term process. That's the difference between safety management and safety hero. Your comment? All right, so we're coming towards the end of our presentation. So before we end here, well, there's a recap. So we discussed the differences between safety management and safety hero. We discussed sometimes you have to be the safety hero. Okay, I'm not saying that you don't have to be, but what I'm saying is you shouldn't stay that way. Okay, that's the point I'm making. A safety hero is not sustainable. We discussed safety management. You can go through the ASSP and download the ISO management system and read it, and it'll give you lots of different ideas on how to implement management system. And the next presenter or speaker is going to focus more on management system, so he could give you some tips. I hope you learned a few different management techniques, and I hope you had fun. That is the, yes?
So I have a question that might go for our next speaker, but they were asked to you. I am newly assigned to a company as a HSE manager and identified a major problem, language barrier. 80% of the team with Chinese language, and it's difficult to convey safety message. How to implement safety management system?
On the OSHA website, if you go to osha.gov and go to the right, there's something called A to Z. And then to the further right, there's a section that has language. And you can change that to the language that you're looking for. Obviously in English, you can find the material that you like. Use the translator for the OSHA website. Hopefully that has the language you're looking for. And that document would then match the one you had in English. That would be one way to start. All right. Thank you very much for your time. I truly appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you.
Luis, thank you very much for your presentation. Fantastic presentation. I have 2 points to make really quick off that presentation. If you remove the Superman picture and put Batman up there, all of your worries will be solved. So don't worry about that. And number 2, we use the word discipline. So discipline is not a bad thing whatsoever when it comes to correcting actions. Accountability, transparency go hand in hand. So when you put HR along with your safety managers and they're speaking the same language, discipline can be a very good thing versus what it typically is perceived to be a very bad thing, right? So with discipline comes corrective actions. With discipline comes corrections from past mistakes that are made. And that caveat and that cliche statement that's always made, this is how we've always done it. We've got to get rid of that. Absolutely get rid of that and have both HR and your safety teams work hand in hand together. So those are the only comments. Take the Batman one and run with it. Trust me, your presentations will be a lot smoother, my friend. So with you there. So with that being said, it's at 12:55. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 1:05. And we do have that raffle at the end. For the folks who are taking a break here, enjoy the brownie bites and the lemon bites that we have for the break. For the folks in your homes or in your offices, grab whatever you can. So we'll be back at 1:05. Yes. Taking your feedback seriously. Moderating your, really good at first time. Okay, welcome back. So for my online users, a couple housekeeping things as well too, as we get ready for this raffle at the end of our presentation and program for today. So we need you to go on, and as you would in our classroom setting, we need you to take anything that may be in there, such as a phone number, or if your title is a Zoom user, and if it's not your first and last name, if you could edit that for raffle purposes. So when we do the raffle, we can pull the name that's going to win the $775 class here. Oh, fantastic. Perfect. So that is there. And again, as we continue on with our program, I like to introduce a hero of mine when it comes to this here. So Dick Manad. So when I first started here over a decade ago, I sat in his class and he passed me, and he gave me the opportunity to get my certificates and actually one day teach here. And that was a decade ago. So it's all his fault, right? But what a fantastic person, what a fantastic presenter with such a great background in history when it comes to safety. So as he figures out the pointer and he brings assistants in there, so I'd like to introduce Dick Manad. Dick, thank you so much. And the floor is yours, my friend. Dick is also a Taylor Swift fan, wearing the Taylor Swiftie headpiece and everything else.
Not only that.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. I really appreciate you guys being here. One of the biggest reasons why that is, some of you guys may know who I am, other than Alex's most wonderful introduction. But the other thing is, what I usually bring to this kind of a venue, certainly to CSUDH, as far as an OTI, is the perspective of a compliance officer. So I spent about 33 years in compliance for Cal OSHA. And what Luis has said to you guys earlier is absolutely true. Most safety and health people, and certainly currently there's a drastic reduction in professionals out there that have spent a significant amount of time in the field. And so every time as a compliance officer, when I tend to take when I have to 80% of my work as a compliance officer had to deal with either serious injuries and or fatalities. That gets old very quick, especially since back in my day, not so much nowadays, but back in my day, we were expected to push about 100, 110 cases a year. So if you're kind of looking at that, that's a hell of an attrition rate of people that have gone compromised either by dying or by, for the rest of their life, no longer being able to live the life that they originally had wanted to. And then so that kind of motivated me. And prior to that, the thing that actually got me into compliance for Cal OSHA as an industrial hygienist was I joined the U.S. Air Force in 1974 and was assigned to a biochemical nuclear warfare base known as Holloman Air Force Base. So if you guys have seen Oppenheimer, the movie Oppenheimer, that's actually where the original atomic weapons were detonated. So I've had a very interesting career. As much as I dislike authority, interestingly enough, I've been the authority for the rest of my life. So the couple of things that I've noticed as a compliance officer, interestingly enough, is that OSHA has been, right or wrong, this is kind of the take. One of the things that I'm a big promoter of is sales and marketing. And the biggest reason why that is because professionals like us, we are trying to sell a concept. And that concept is, let me get back. There we go. That concept is actually a safety management system. And a little bit later on, what you currently have here, and I'm going to be, I'm losing, there we go. Now it's getting in my mustache. Not good. There we go. Can you guys hear me? That's gonna, I got little ears too, just guys, you know. All right, so basically voluntary protection program is designed, and it was designed very, very early in the OSHA program. The VPP stands for Voluntary Protection Program, and every employer nationwide can make themselves available to the concept of this. And again, compliance people, it's actually kind of easy to be a compliance person. It's harder in hell for you to be the sole maneuverer of a system that doesn't understand why the program exists to begin with in terms of an OSHA program. Why does it exist? Well, basically, it exists in order to maintain efficiency, point one. Point two, a quality assurance that leads to a net profit. And that, unfortunately, is not what is being broadcast. And that's certainly not what's being understood on the part of industry. So we're fighting an awful lot of fires, to Lewis's point. We're burning out a lot of our professionals only because the people that need to be there, HR, CEO, CFO, don't understand the benefits of exactly this, even though it's been around. The first VPP site was here in California. Why? Because it was a partnership between Fed OSHA and State OSHA. Cal OSHA is a contract covered state. And basically that's where the launch for the VPP program occurred, right here in California. So when you take a look at this, the following series of slides is basically a whole bunch of numbers that I would really love for you guys to share with your managers, your senior and your executive managers. And the simple reason why that is because safety and health, when applied as a system, a holistic system that covers all facets of the departments, right, winds up becoming an advantage. When you take a look at all of these, there are very rigid requirements. So quit looking for perfection that don't exist. Right? What is measurable, to Lewis's point, is progress. And that's basically what we need to try to get across to our senior and executive managers. When you onboard mid-level managers, whatever, from rank and file all the way up to HR, we need to be able to get into the same direction in terms of what is this concept. The concept is efficiency. The concept is business continuity. Oh, gee willikers, yeah. Continuous improvement happens to be a business model currently. Yet when it comes to VPP, very few people take it. Why? Because there's a lack of complete understanding in terms of what the concept is, what the context is, and definitely what the content is. We are so focused ever since 1970, when the OSHA program came into play, we are focused on targeted topical hazards rather than looking at the entire process. Okay, so just kind of FYI, as this is moving along, again, you can read this for yourself. You're going to see what the merits of these are, the stepping stones, and it's a kind of a progression. What I'd like to do at the tail end of my little monologue is to show you the functionality of the VPP program as basically modeled through the Cal OSHA IIPP, and the Fed OSHA IIPP is going to be following the state's IIPP. So to Lewis's point again, STAR is the beginning. It is a holistic approach. To remind you, it is a holistic sequential approach that requires every employer to make a very sound decision. Do I want to pay now or do I want to pay later? Simple question, isn't it? And this entire concept of occupational safety and health actually is reduced to exactly that. Do I want to pay now or do I want to pay later? When I give life to this particular program, you're going to see why that is the case. That question is never raised. Why? Because the price of an injury, of a loss in production, winds up being deferred. So we don't really see that, with a notable history that we are creating when we get inspected. Is that kind of making sense? CEOs, CFOs, HR people do not understand that when a compliance officer makes a visit, that visit gets populated and recorded at the federal OSHA webpage. There is no administrative way for you to remove that, even if you've abated it. And therefore, you are now subject to a repeat serious citation or a repeat citation, regardless of the price of tea goes up. It's a very simple economic decision. You want to pay now, you want to pay later. Okay. It's not how much you make, folks. And this holds true for everybody that's in the business community. It's not how much you make, it's how much you get to keep. Again, it's a very simple mathematical formula, isn't it? But we don't sell that concept to our seniors and our executive managers. Why? Because they were never introduced to that line of thinking. And that's the reason why VPP is so important. The VPP is OSHA's way to try to, oh, there we go. Let's advance that. Yeah, why this thing times out? Did it advance? All right, there we go. Yeah, if you take a look, and there's going to be numbers associated with this PowerPoint, and the source of this is the VPP organization at the national level. Now, VPP is a national run program, basically, that establishes a model, it establishes a sequential step-by-step approach that oddly enough starts with you doing a gap analysis. Some of you guys may not understand what a gap analysis is. Those of you who've got some kind of business sense understand what a gap analysis is. It basically takes you to where you are currently at and goes into reverse at least 5 years to find out what has happened in those 5 years. Some of you guys may understand this concept known that if past is prologue, that phrase that says that if past is prologue, what it means is that if we don't learn from history, we are doomed to make the same mistake over and over again. What does that mean? That means the cost of business keeps climbing. Here's the thing, folks. I'm retired, at least that's what my kids think, which means I live on a fixed income. Any of your people get sick or hurt, you're going to offset that cost. Yes? Which automatically means that whatever goods or services, whatever structures you're building is going to cost me a hell of a lot more money. So I'm very much self-interested in getting this friggin' message across. Pure and simple. We need to start reining in the cost of doing business. Why? Because then everybody gets to share in the advantages of. All right, so let's take a look at this. You have to first make a written application. And this, and again, like I said, I'll give you some help at the tail end of this. I don't want to, get too deeply into what's in terms of what the VPP is, because the VPP is on site. It's a simple matter of you typing in your whatever search engine you want, just type in Cal OSHA VPP, OSHA VPP, and it's going to give you a whole list of helpful hints from Heloise that will get you there. Okay, so when you take a look at this, it also says that it is a reality, however remote, and this is an urban mythology. People tend to think, businesses tend to think that the chances of OSHA occurring are slim next to none. The only problem with it is, and again, this is holistically approaching, right? If we have an aging population and that aging population gets hurt, there's a greater chance that the recovery is going to be longer, which means it's going to cost you more. Conversely, if that older person that's still on our payroll does get hurt, the hazards have not changed. The hazards have not changed significantly, right? But the results of those hazards have. Why? Because most of them have not been addressed. Why is that? Because we look at individual hazards. We look at HAZCOM. We look at confined space. We look at fall protection. We look at chemicals. We don't look at it from a holistic approach. If I were to ask each and every one of you guys, right? Where does OSHA have its most critical impact? If we even understand what is an input, a throughput, and an output. Do you know what an input, throughput, and output is? Can you tell me what an input, throughput, and output is? That's your business process. When people come to work, they show up, they punch in. They have to transition through time and space to get where it is that they're going. Yes? Right. Then they do what they're supposed to do. They're printing, they are cutting, they are packaging. That's the throughput side. Then the output side is the finished goods. OSHA jurisdiction occurs through that entire process, but there's a notorious lack of systemic process knowledge on everybody in the business. The only people that have some clue are people like you guys. HR sure as hell don't. And if HR doesn't know, how are they going to support you? They don't. So we need to do a little bit better in terms of sales and marketing, pure and simple. This is where it starts. This is basically your gap analysis. And the VPP program has a model self-assessment that you can utilize. And it is designed for everybody, small, medium, and large. If you do not have the resources, this is again a reason for you to get on the horn and ask for a consultant to come in and help you. Tell them that your end game is to go to a STAR program. Tell them that your end game is to become a VPP employer. That is a very elite bunch of folks, by the way. Okay, and again, it's been around since 1980. Let's take a look at this. It is designed for you to do a self-assessment. There is a tremendous amount of paper, And I'm not going to sit and try to soft sell this, but it does require you to do a deep dive into every department of everybody that works for you or with you. You need to get familiar with them. You need to get to know them. You need to be basically a sales agent. You're the closer. But the only way for you to close this concept is for you to first educate them about what this concept is. Wouldn't you agree with that? And then establish the context. And that requires a little bit of doing. These hazard assessments, or these basically the self-assessment, will get you there. All right. So that self-assessment, once you get done with that, and again, that model is online. I need to repeat that for you guys. In the search engine, regardless of where you are located, if you're within the sound of my voice in your search engine, just type in VPP self-assessment, and you're going to get a variety of documents. Cal OSHA certainly has them. Washington has them. Oregon has them. Every state in the nation has one. The primary reference, of course, is the OSHA VPP program itself. So this is where you can get more information. Again, I will guarantee you that once you fly this flag, once you're granted the certification from OSHA, your insurance rates will drop. That's originally what the intent was. Then you stay with them for 3 years. And then once the 3 years are up, again, it is continuous improvement. You wind up getting re-inspected. So the expectation is once they help you get there, once you get that designation, you keep it alive, you keep it moving forward, you keep stoking the fires. And at the end of a 3-year period, you're going to take a look-see at that and say, yeah, you're going to get recertified. Keep in mind that the cost of accidents are really, really expensive these days. For Christ's sakes, if it comes down to a cost-benefit analysis, if you intend on killing people, for Christ's sake, kill them. And then put them in the back 40 and forget about them. Do not maim them, because when you maim them, you've bought their medical support for life, haven't you? Add that into the mix. Add that into the mix. Make that calculations for that CFO and the CEO. All right. So basically, this is what it boils down to. There are economic benefits to having that VPP as an end game, as a target. I'm a big believer in that. Always have been, even as a compliance officer. Okay. I try to move the people that I've inspected, even though I wound up having to cite them. I try to get them to understand the concept of occupational safety and health. I develop the context for them, and then I focus on the content. And the content typically is knowing the regulation, right? And how this is all interrelated. Question you have to ask is, are you willing to motivate? Right? We're technical people. That's what we are. We're technical people. Unfortunately, we don't have enough concept. We don't have enough information about how to be a good salesperson. Right. So if you think about in my classes here at CSUDH, I ask students to do this thing called, I want you to go in the field and watch people and listen to them. Then one of the other exercises I give them, if you can't get out into the field and watch people and make observations in terms of what I say, a logical fallacy, how people communicate, I ask them to watch HSN or QVC. HSN and QVC are the giants in sales and marketing. Watch how they do things. Pick up on some of those cues, because that will tell you exactly how you need to communicate concept, context, and content of the VPP program, but your entire program in general. You can sell this. It is really not that difficult, but you first have to identify, are they willing to listen? Wouldn't you agree? If your CEO and your CFO and your HR people are not willing to listen, how are you going to motivate them? That is a problem. Yeah, Luis. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
What was the name of the acronym you gave? You said for selling and marketing. You said
sales and marketing?
Yeah,
HSN and QVC.
Okay.
Some of you guys know those places. I ask my students to take a look at those and basically analyze the sales messaging. How did they sell a message of something that you originally did not really want, but at the tail end of their presentations, you tend to want to buy it? Making sense? That's concept, right? It's been formalized. These guys are just phenomenal at that. Right. So bottom line is, do you accept the challenge? And that's basically where I come in. You need to kind of listen to all of the, yeah, go ahead. There was a question.
I have a question that says, what happens is If Cal OSHA go to the job site and find some hazards, are they write up with the violation ticket?
Yes, they sure will. Compliance people are motivated to come back with numbers. You know, what's that old ad campaign? Where's the beef? Yeah, there it is. Right? And if you ever wonder, don't ever ask him. And don't ever ask a compliance officer, what does OSHA think? Because OSHA does not think. It's people might occasion have lucid states of mind, but compliance officers are basically little wind-up toys. I hate to say that. But if I were to look for an analogy, compliance people are basically little automatons that got wound up. They're being given a direction, get them. That's it, get them. And they come back with 2.5 citations per inspection. 30% of them have to be serious. That appears to be a national quota. Now, I cannot verify that. Yes, I can, because I used to get in a whole bunch of trouble for not meeting that quota. I was not exactly the most favorite person within my own division, but hey, you know, I have a job to do. My job is to make sure that people understand what it is that we're trying to get done. Okay, so just kind of FYI. Whoops. All right, so I'm going to ask and open it before this thing time's out. I'm going to ask a couple of questions about how well you know. Let's pretend I'm still a compliance officer. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and I'll direct my attention first and foremost to here, right? Can you define your organizational chart? Okay, that's good. Now, do that. That's really nice. All right.
Yes.
In that organizational chart, you've got your senior executive commanders, right? Are you in production or not? Are you in production or are you in construction?
I'm in the general industry, in the printing industry.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Explain a particular process for any one of your printers. Beginning, middle, and end.
Any one of my printers, like just the production process?
Yeah. Explain the production process to me.
Okay, well, we have a master roll that goes onto the machine. It has to get lifted.
Oh, you have a master roll of what?
Sorry, a master roll of paper.
Okay, good.
Paper.
What's the weight? What's the
It is
size?
about 750 pounds.
That's going to kill somebody.
It's going to kill somebody. So they use a clamp lift.
Okay.
And each one of those employees that operate the clamp lift are forklift certified.
Okay. Now explain the hazards all the way along that process line for me, will you?
Well, of course, getting on the forklift itself.
Yeah.
Okay. The roll, if it falls, it could fall and
Yeah. What kind of energy is there?
Smashing of a foot or smashing of the body itself.
Yeah. So you've got electrical energy.
Yes, we have electrical energy as
Okay.
well.
You got physical energy.
Yes.
You've got basically when things go up, things got to come down. I think that's called gravity.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
They have a hoist lift that they lift the paper up.
Yeah. Is there any chemistry involved?
No, as far as, well, there's,
Noise.
oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's a lot of,
Yeah.
it's very noisy. So we have hearing protection.
Yeah.
We have 4-foot protection.
Oh, you said hearing protection. Remember, I'm a compliance officer right now, right?
Yes.
Oh, I see you have hearing protection.
Yes,
Are you aware that you're supposed to have a certification statement for that?
yes, like the noise symmetry, like a hearing conservation program.
Yes. But do you have, since you're using PPE, do you happen to have a certification statement that says that you've done a hazard assessment? No,
Well, I mean, I have done a hazards assessment with the OSHA consultant.
right. But did they give you a certification statement?
No, I know.
That means she's subject to getting a citation. You see how this works, right? I'm just giving her a series of questions like most compliance people would do, right? That is focused on the process and the hazards identified within that process. The problem with this is, right, is that we are so compartmentalized. Production looks only at production. Okay. If you've got a quality assurance folks, then they'll only look at quality assurance. They'll take some tests, they'll do it compared to a known quantity and say, yeah, this is quality assurance. But nobody that I've run across, either in my class or as a compliance officer, takes a process control. Let me give him to him.
Ma'am, in between there, if Dick does give you a citation, I want you to appeal that citation. All of his questions were very leading. Appeal, appeal, appeal. don't pay it, because I think you were very well off in what you said.
Yep. No, and I appreciate that because I would absolutely urge everybody to appeal because that maintains basically your due process rights. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. There we go.
I want to know because I bust my butt. I'm a safety coordinator. I've been,
Okay, look at 3380. Are you in California?
yes.
All right. The Fed has the almost identically the same language. Look at, and this is low hanging fruit, folks. This is low hanging fruit. Almost nobody has a certification statement. Look at Title 8 CCR 3380 and
Title what?
Title 8.
Uh-huh.
So CCR, California Code of Regulations.
Right.
And that has 3380 has to do with PPE, and just do Control F and type in A, hazard assessment, and then right below it, there'll be a subsection that says certification statement.
Certification statement.
Now, every COSHO nationwide, by the way, folks, has identified that that is low hanging fruit because virtually nobody does it, which means you're the topic or the subject for getting at least a general citation. That general citation, if it involves or if it involves you not being able to prove that you've done a hazard assessment or have a certification statement, that could very readily become a serious citation if it was involved in a serious accident or fatality. Sucks to be you. It's good to be the king. No, it's not. But yeah, is that making sense to you? All right, so 3380 is a controlling safety order. For all of you guys, please do your records check. Yes.
So I have a question from Zane online. So,
Howdy, Zane.
so we need first aid certification, but how do we get noise certification?
Okay, that's kind of an interesting question. I challenge you guys, if you're online, especially for the guys that are online and you happen to have a separate monitor, type in Title 8 CCR 1597. 1597, that is the hearing conservation safety order. Are you doing that? Are you doing the 1597 right now? All right. Oh, no, if you are, please do. And look for subsection B. What does it say? Somebody online that they say that they go to subsection B? Take a look at subsection B. You have a duty to identify since 1980. Again, low hanging fruit. Take a look at that, 1597. You have a duty, those are the two safety orders, by the way, that are systems focused, that are process focused. For any chemistry, that is 5155, you have a positive duty to identify the chemistry. You do not have a choice. That is a prescriptive standard. Then 1597, the second most common occupational hazards in the world are chemistries and noise. Most of those have not been performed. Both of those are categorically expected to be serious citations. What is a serious citations worth? A whole bunch of money. If it's a repeat citation, it'll be $140,000 plus or minus change. Again, ask your CEO, your CFO. You want to pay now, you want to pay later, because that is a reality. Yes, sir. Oh,
Yeah, 5 years ago, I worked for a company. They had a PPE hazard assessment form. It didn't say the word certification, and they got cited.
Yep. Thank you, Chief. Yeah, take a look at it. Do you see why systems approach is really important, right? Because typically what I encourage people to do when they're in my classes here, I encourage people, and as a matter of fact, that is a homework assignment that I give them and say, you need to go back 5 years and identify just those two hazards. Has anybody tested for any chemistries? And the reason why I suggest that, both of those codes simply state that you have to quantify it when there's a reason to believe. Anybody want to tell me what is a reason to believe? Yes, go ahead.
I actually had a question from the Q&A.
Oh, absolutely.
So, they typed in CCR 1597, which is coming up with vehicles.
5097, 1597.
Oh, they put 15.
No, that's construction. 5097. It applies, by the way, to construction as well. Thank you for asking that question. Here's the problem I've run across in class here. People that take general industry do not believe that their people are involved in construction-related safety orders. Again, a reason for you to go to safety systems management. It integrates the entire field of occupational safety and health. Every safety order nationwide is focused on an activity, not a job title. Is that making sense to all of you guys? All right? Is that making absolute sense to all of you guys? So your maintenance people, anytime that they have a drill a hole to move something from, an electrical box from here to there, they're engaged in construction-related activity that falls under the construction safety orders, especially if it is more rigid than the general industry safety order. Is that making sense? And for all you guys that are in the construction trades, bear this in mind, that your yard falls under general industry. Why? Because it has a fixed address. Making sense now? So we need to start as a business model. We need to start elevating our efforts to get away from topical hazards and look at it from a perspective of process hazards. Then and only then can we start to bring the number of injuries and illnesses down. Then and only then can we hope to even come close to getting to this safety management system. But it starts with the first step. Yes? Any other questions in the chat? Any one of those guys can ask me a question because I tend to say it straight up. What's the one? Oh, okay.
No questions on the chat.
Okay, all right. Is this blowing people's minds just in that? I hope not, because I do want you guys to continue on. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, yes. Oh, thank you. We have an IT guru. That's next to none. All right, what you see on your screen is a QR code. And that QR code will get you to a PowerPoint that basically is a little bit late. My bad, but I have a 94-year-old mother that just went through her third set of what's that called? What's it called when you fade out? Speaking of fading out. Anyway, yes. It's compromised the brain for the last 3 weeks. So that was kind of an unfortunate thing. But in any event, take a snapshot of that QR code. It'll get you to a PowerPoint presentation. That PowerPoint presentation will give you basically the nuts and bolts of the IIPP. It gives you an explanation of what that IIPP, and in fact, that is the easiest beginning to do a safety systems management program. But just understand that an IIPP contains language that needs to be clarified, right? First and foremost, again, to previous points in terms of enforcing the code, enforcing house rules. The IIBP is a house rule by design and intent. By virtue of its structure, it is a house rule. The other part of that requirement is, again, in line with safety systems management, in line with the VPP, they're going to look for how are you going to enforce the house rules. That's 3203A2. 3203A2 says that how are you going to enforce house rule? Think of us, we're all right here, we're all health and safety people, yes? Most of you guys are parents, I would hope. And if you are parents, think about your teenage, okay? There's almost no difference in you managing your teenager to try to become productive members of society and you being a health and safety officer. It's constant repetition of the concept, the context, and the content. Yes.
So I have 2 questions online. First from Zane. The noise certification doesn't come up on the list from that Cal OSHA gives you when asking for documentations prior to inspection. How do we know the noise certification is done correctly?
The noise certification, are you talking about, Zane, are you talking about doing basically noise survey? Did he say yes? Because the noise survey is mandatory under 5097. And how that, and I'm really happy Zane is asking this. This is how it works. This is again, process focused, right? If you have an inclination that might be noisy, what is the parameter for what is considered noisy? If I step within 3 feet, right, from basically myself to this individual here, that's called a social zone. That social zone, if I have to start elevating my voice, that is sufficient data for compliance people to trigger 1597. Why? Because if I have to raise my voice at our distance here, it means that I'm approaching 85 dB. Is that making sense? What is the trigger for you to institute the hearing conservation program? 85 dB. Making sense? So that becomes a trigger. What other trigger exists in your corporate documents? Yes, let me finish this and I'll get to Zane, right? The other trigger that will trigger you to quantify how much noise you have is the owner's uses and repair manual for any piece of equipment you might have. Is that clear? Right? So if you've got a forklift that's squealing like a friggin' pig, that's a sufficient indicator that you need to quantify that value. The code makes no exceptions. It says when there is reason to believe, and that same legal text is in the HASCOM or in the chemistry standard, 5194. Is that making sense to all of you guys? We need to read those codes a little bit more closely for what the intent of the code is, as well as what the language of the code itself suggests that you do. And that is a historical disconnect between reading the code and understanding the action items needed by that code. Yes. I'm sorry, Zane. Did I answer your question, Zane?
Well, Zane just commented that he works in construction and uses an audio meter to ensure it's under 85 decibels. Our next question comes from Nicholas. What happens if in the process of the VPP assessment, OSHA or Cal OSHA find violations? Do they give you a citation?
Yeah, it's a good question. What winds up happening, the VPP program will not just show up and do the audit. The audit is usually takes about 3 years to get there. When you first look at yourself auditing, use that checklist. It is actually a very simple checklist, and it is absolutely holistically focused. One of the reasons why OSHA is again amping up to try to motivate people to get there is purely because NIOSH, and for those of you guys who do not know who NIOSH is the research arm for occupational safety and health. NIOSH, through Dr. Howard, is pushing this thing called PT, Prevention Through Design, PTD. Look that acronym up. In your search engine, type in Prevention Through Design. That was kind of put on the back burner for a while, but Dr. Howard is trying to reactivate enough emphasis on that particular program. Prevention Through Design is very consistent with ANSI Z10, with its safety systems management, as well as the ISO standard. The ISO standard can get people certified at an international level. The ANSI Z10 Safety Systems Management Program is purely designed for US companies. They're almost identically the same. The two biggest difference between the ISO standard and the Z10 standard is the Z10 standard is employee focused. Is that making sense? Right? And just to remind the rest of you guys, when you're selling this concept to your senior and executive managers, let them know that the Z10 is known as a best standard. And a best standard is absolutely enforceable. Again, we need to get information. We need to acquire information that can be used in order to generate basically a really understandable sales package to the people that make ultimate decisions. Is that kind of making sense? And that's where we need to get better at it. We need to be able to identify basically where can we find resources, documented, legitimate resources that we can add to our sales package when we communicate to senior and executive managers saying why this is important. Yes, go ahead.
I have another question. Is medical evaluation required just like the respiratory protection?
For respiratory protection?
Yes.
That is kind of a qualifying statement that depends. Yeah, if you're using, thank you for asking that question. All right. What determines a respirator? In general, a respirator, legally is identified as a filtering face piece that most importantly has a particular certification statement. It has basically on the respirator itself, you can find that it has a NIOSH certified equipment listed number, right? If it doesn't have that, then it's not going to be a respirator. If it does have a TC number, testing certification, then by definition, it becomes a respirator, and people that have to wear a respirator need to be fit tested. End of line. Okay, so if you're thinking back to COVID, an N95, since it is invoked in the COVID standard, is a bona fide respirator. It has a TC number, which means that the employees need to be assessed in terms of can they wear this? So parts, if not all of the respiratory protection program now falls into play, and it is absolutely enforceable. All right, any other questions? No? Oh, yeah. Good questions. Ask away, you guys.
So the question is still pertaining to the last question.
The noise.
I was referring to noise certification needing medical evaluation for employees similar to procedures of respiratory protection. So send employees to be assessed for hearing loss?
Yeah. If the code requires, and basically those are known as performance-based codes, and a performance-based codes establishes the logic gate. If this, then what? Okay, that's basically a logic gate that the code establishes. So if you've got employees who may be exposed to noise in excess of 85 dB for an 8-hour time weighted average, then you need to provide basically medical support, medical monitoring system. That starts with a baseline audiogram. That baseline audiogram will dictate. Then you also have to make sure that they continuously go to that and do their annual audiogram. The code also requires that if anything changes in that exposure field, you have to make a reassessment. You have to re-quantify the environment. So yeah, that's a really good question. It's a compound in-depth question, so I'm glad he's asking it. Very good. Okay. Let's see what we have. Oh yeah, so make sure you get that QR code because that will explain a lot on what the IIPP here in California is currently demanding of you, because I put some editorials in there that might be of very good use to you. So get that QR code, please. All right. So again, safety systems management. I'm trying to move this ever since I became an instructor for CSUDH. Since I retired in 2012, but I started working for CSUDH in 2010. And the only reason why I accepted that particular challenge is because over the 33 years of me doing this, I kept seeing systemic failures over and over and over and over again. That PowerPoint that you're going to get with that QR code, you'll see data that is from 2021 and 2022, most commonly issued citations here in California. Take a real close look and do a comparison between the 2021 and the 2022 most commonly issued citations and the hazards that those codes are trying to address. Here's the interesting thing about that. The biggest reason, again, why I accepted the challenge to become an outreach trainer for CSUDH is purely because my advanced degree is in organizational theory and behavior. Why? Because I kept seeing the same damn thing happening over and over and over again. From an organizational perspective, not a targeted hazard perspective. Making sense? So when you look at that, you're going to find that the IIPP is still the most commonly issued citation, is becoming more increasingly a serious citation. Then A2 is, of course, the enforcement part. A3 is the communication part. A4, for all of you guys that are listening to my voice, if you get a citation for failure to have inspected, be prepared to also get a citation for failure to correct in a timely manner. You guys tell me, it's in the code. Take a look-see at it. What's timely to you? Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that'll work. Sure. Compliance people have a very fixed time that they are bound to. If it is a serious citation, you cannot take more than 3 days to fix something. If it's a general citation, you cannot take more than 30 days to fix something. So they have a freaking time element. Why doesn't business have a time element? You see something, you got to decide when you're going to fix it. The code specifies that. Just look at 3203A4 again closely. Then look at 3203A6. They go hand in hand. And because they go hand in hand, if you get a citation for one, more likely going to get a citation for the other. Why? Because the trigger is A6, right? The trigger is somebody got hurt. They see something that's citable. Then they're going to ask, why is it like this? You know how they do that? They go, hey, how long has it been like this? And what do you think your rank and file going to say? Oh, man, they just quit wanting to fix this stuff. It's been like that for 6 months. Bust. Here you go. It is that simple. It is that simple. Okay. All right. So let's review this. Look at all of this data. The data, especially now, this data that you're going to see is this is proof. Oh, so God, you know, that's right. Whoa, talk about squirrel moments here. I get those. All of this data, if you take a look at this, look at the size of the VPP sites. This covers all VPPs across the country. This stuff is working. Okay, again, you factor out the COVID scenarios, but all the number of employees times 100, 504 goes down to 40 plus. And one of the reasons why that is because people tend to now all of a sudden get really kind of paranoid about this. Participants, federal, state, the star site, that's a lot. That's a lot. Okay, let's take a look at California, OSHA region. We are in region 9. PPP sites by region. This is federal only. And the reason why these numbers are kind of low, because those are what are known as contract covered states. So we operate our own programs here in California. Okay, so that seems to be very consistent. The lower the typical numbers are, those are contract covered states. Not all states have contract covered states. But when you start taking a look-see at distribution of VPP sites by state, look at frickin' Texas. One of the reasons why they're aggressive about this, their OTI is aggressive, is because they kind of understood, since it's primarily oil, that's a highly dangerous job. And there's people waiting in the wind to get in, and they're trying to get a handle of that. So non-union versus union, or federal systems only. This stuff is important. Right? This verifies to your senior managers and your executive managers why this stuff works. And you need to try to at least take that first step. Top 15 industries in the VPP, federal, specialty trade contractors, chemical. Why do you think this is? The chemical industry is Fed. Bhopal was a big driver for the HASCOM program. GHS, another big driver. Right. And then so a lot of chemical companies, they kind of figured it out. Hey, man, those third-party litigation lawsuits and medical person, oh, yeah, that's expensive. So let's not try to kill people. More importantly, let's not try to maim people. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yeah, we got to fix this, huh? Oh, thank you. That'd be like me looking for a light switch in the dark. Let's take a look at some of the other ones. Oh, there we go. Now, you look at the year over year, and again, you need to kind of exclude the beginning of COVID when things start to go down a little bit, but they're back up. So yeah, when you look at data, keep in mind that COVID is what we're coming out of it, and so that's like almost 4 years from beginning to end. So exclude that data when you do the analysis. But when you take a look, see at this in terms of the growth of VPP's state plans, it's going up little by little. Here's California. Here's the interesting thing about this: California versus North Carolina. Right. So again, one of the reasons why California is kind of hangs around the 4th or 5th largest economy in the world is because whether you like it or not, whether you like the regulations or not, that works. We've got a tremendously varied industries. We got ag, we've got aerospace, we've got automotive, we've got high tech. And because of all of those things, they kind of figured it out. FYI, the state of California had a division of industrial safety since 1927. 1927, they had a division of industrial safety already. The OSHA Act didn't come into play until 1970. So, Johnny come latelys, we need to catch up. All right. Region 9. This is where we are. This is West Coast, Hawaii, Guam. So that's actually kind of a really good tell. Whoops. Yeah. So see if you guys can take on that challenge. At least investigate the VPP program, because the VPP program in its origin and in its modeling models the ANSI Z10 protocols. It is not that difficult. It requires a drive, but more importantly, before you can sell that concept, you need to access data that your CEOs, your CFOs can actually understand. So when you get to that QR code, there's some hyperlinks embedded into that PowerPoint that will get you to that research data, not least of which is the OSHA Form 170 webpage, which identifies the types of fatalities and catastrophes. Once they are recorded, they stay online. The establishment search, once they are recorded, they stay online. You cannot come off of it. Each and every one of you guys that are currently listening to me, you should go to the establishment search first and foremost and see if your current company has a history and how far that history goes back. Okay. Note to self, that history was established in 1972. Every workers' comp attorney pays people to do that kind of research. You got somebody get injured, they take on a workers' comp attorney, they'll go to that establishment search and go back as far back as the origin of your company. And whatever is located there is actionable in terms of changing the comp characterization from a normal comp to an egregious filing. Any other questions? Because we got to do our because Alex is just chomping at the bit to give things away. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, the question is, the VPP program is for small, medium, and bigger companies, and you can do it in California too?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, but for everybody that's listening, there are OTIs. This is one of the better ones, at least that's my opinion, that you need to start to educate yourself, only because these people will not let me fly alone, which is really a good thing. And we've got quality people like Alex and like Louise. So yeah, so that way I feel safe in deep water. That's all it boils down to. All right. So Alex, you want to do the what do you call it? Oh, I thought you guys were going to hand out stuff.
Dick, thank you very much
Oh,
for
you
your
bet.
presentation. So we are a huge round of applause for you in the room. Obviously, yeah, online as well too. You can applaud if people can hear you. If not, just applaud to yourself. That'd be fantastic. So here's what we're gonna do. As prior to us going into the raffle, I know we're ahead of schedule here. See if there's any questions posed for any of our presenters online. Do we have any questions posed at all for anything that we've covered here whatsoever? So Dick, you brought up a couple of great things, HSN and QVC, right? I've tried shopping on those lines as well too. I try to buy my wife pots and pans for cooking, then they've remained props in my household. So with that being said, if none of you take the food back there, it's going to my house because all my pots and pans are props at home. And that's how I survive, is by eating out and other people's food. So without further ado, thank you again to Luis, Chris, and to Dick. And let's see how we are going to do this raffle process. Has everybody online now changed their name to not change their name, but change their user profile to their name in order for us to do this raffle drawing? Are we good there? I feel like I'm at home sometimes. I ask a question and I just get nods. Right. So we're good. Okay, fantastic. This is great. All right. So without further ado, We are raffling for a $775 class here at CSUDH. So that's the giveaway. And I'm hoping so let's do that. So we have what's known as a dual modality aspect of it too. So we have not only the video conferencing aspect of it, but we actually have a class in session. If I could move all of you into Hector's class and bug him like I normally like to do when I'm teaching here alongside him, we would show you that dual modality aspect of it. So both in person, video as well too. So we're eventually getting back to the norm, slowly but surely. So, but without further ado, let's do the raffle. All right. I'm gonna let Kathy take the helm here and handle the raffle side. We do have, well, I sure hope we have a winner if we're doing a raffle, right? That's good. Fantastic. We're working there. All right. So Kathy, if you could announce who our winner is off the raffle.
Yes, our lucky winner for one course up to 775 is Tony Reed.
Tony who?
Tony Reed.
Very nice. Very, very nice. So Tony, congratulations. Let me give the microphone back over to Raul, our director. 1 second.
Tony's.
Sorry, I was just asking if Tony's here. Is he connected through video conferencing?
He's connected through video conferencing.
Congratulations, Tony.
Fantastic. So Tony, congratulations to you. Are there any additional questions before we wrap up for the day from anybody, whether you're online or in person here? Remember, appeal. Okay, you were absolutely in the right until you started to speak. So you're definitely going to get a citation. Appeal, and stay as silent as possible. Any other questions at all? No. Fantastic. Thank you all for attending our quarterly update. Looking forward to our next quarterly update as well too. As we wrap up Safe and Sound Week, I ask that all of you remain safe, not only in your workplace, but in your everyday activities that you do, and instill that transparency, that not discipline aspect of it, but it's okay to be disciplined and learn from it. And that open communication between your HR teams and your safety managers as well too. So without further ado, thank you so much and have a wonderful weekend.